Welcome, dear listeners, to our scary stories. Step lightly as we descend into the depths of the unknown, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs, where truth is stranger and scarier than fiction. I am your guide in this journey, ready to lead you into a world that lies hidden beneath the everyday, a world that will make you question the comforting certainty of reality. Prepare your senses for an eerie exploration, hold on to the edge of your seat, and most importantly, remember to keep the lights on. Tonight's story is an alarming tale of a heart that holds more than just life. It harbors a chilling secret. Ready to listen? Let's venture into the world of the haunted heartbeat. In the somber half-light of the hospital room, Sophia sat, her body a thin silhouette against the gray city skyline beyond the window. The once vibrant artist was now reduced to a tableau of frailty. Tubes snaked from her arms, connecting her to beeping machines that stood guard around her bed. The sharp smell of antiseptic hung in the air, mixing with the faint traces of rain from outside. It was the scent of sterile life, the waiting room for a second chance. Sophia, Dr. Larson's voice broke the silence, an interruption to the quiet hum of machinery. Sophia turned her head towards him, her green eyes dull but expectant. Larson, a man weathered by years of delivering both life-altering and life-ending news, felt a soft twinge in his heart. This was the part he never got used to. "We've found a heart for you," he said, his voice steady but gentle. The words hung in the room like a tangible hope, something Sophia could reach out and hold. The reaction was instant. Sophia's eyes widened, the dull green now shimmering with unshed tears. "Oh," she murmured, her hand fluttering to her chest, pressing against the old heart that had betrayed her. A mixture of relief and apprehension swept over her, causing her pulse to quicken under her fingers. Later that evening, as the city outside sank into a deep slumber, the hospital's surgical theater came alive. Sterile white light bore down on Sophia's body, illuminating her pale skin against the stark blue operation table. The air was thick with tense anticipation, the rhythmic sound of the ventilator forming a grim symphony with the surgeon's hushed voices. The smell of antiseptic was stronger here, stinging her nostrils, reminding her of the graveness of what was to come. She felt a cold sensation on her arm as anesthesia dripped into her veins, and the stark white of the room began to blur. As her eyes started to close, she thought she saw a figure standing in the shadows, a mere outline against the white light. But it was impossible. This was a place of science, of second chances, not a place for shadows. "Sophia, it's time," Dr. Larson's voice echoed in the growing darkness of her mind, pulling her away from the figure. His words were her lifeline, tugging her away from the fear of the unknown and the specter lurking just out of sight. As sleep claimed her, she clung to the steady rhythm of her old heart, a comforting lullaby in the cold, sterile room. When Sophia awoke, her body felt heavier, as though she was emerging from deep underwater. Her chest ached, but it was a good pain, a promise of life. Dr. Larson stood at the foot of her bed, his face uncharacteristically bright under the clinical lights of the room. "The operation was successful," he declared. The words stirred a soft, warm glow in Sophia's chest. She closed her eyes, her hand instinctively finding its way to the spot where her new heart now resided, beating strong and true. This was her gift of life. Unbeknownst to Sophia, it came with a debt, a dark echo from its previous owner. As her new heart settled into its rhythm, a fresh chapter in Sophia's life began, one woven with strands of life, death, and chilling mystery. Recovery is a word that speaks of hope, of resilience. It whispers promises of tomorrow, of sunlight, and open windows. But for Sophia, it seemed like a long journey through a dimly lit tunnel. She spent her days in the hospital's recuperation wing, a sterile sanctuary of white walls and linoleum floors. The windows opened to a courtyard, where a tall oak tree held court, its leaves dancing in the breeze. The room was constantly filled with the scent of fresh linen and muted whispers of the nurses, punctuated by the occasional beep from the heart monitor, a mechanical affirmation of her new life. In the quiet solitude of her room, her fingers ached to hold a paintbrush, to channel her emotions into a vibrant maelstrom of colors on canvas. But the shadow of weakness still clung to her body, rendering her movements slow and deliberate. Yet, there was something else in the backdrop of her recovery, an undercurrent of unease that slithered into her dreams. It started on her third night after the surgery. As sleep blanketed her, she found herself trapped in a recurring nightmare that seemed too real, too brutal for the subconscious mind to conjure. She was in a narrow alley, the cobblestones cold and unforgiving under her feet. The dim glow from a single lamp-post carved long shadows around her. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, an odor she couldn't place but made her stomach turn. She could hear a distant echo of traffic, like the low murmur of a far-off sea, but it was drowned by the frantic thumping of her heart in her chest. She was not alone. A woman stood at the other end of the alley, her back against the brick wall. Her face was obscured by the shadows, but Sophia could hear her ragged breathing, could see the fear in the way she held herself. There was a figure advancing towards her, a man, his features hidden under a hood. A glint of something silver flashed in his hand. Each dream ended the same way, with the woman's piercing scream ripping through the silence of the alleyway. Sophia would wake up, her new heart pounding in her chest, her body slick with cold sweat. Her screams echoed the woman's, mingling with the sterile silence of her hospital room. With each passing day, the nightmares grew more vivid, more gruesome. They seeped into her daytime thoughts, the memory of the woman's fear-laced scream echoing in her ears, the scent of the damp alleyway lingering in her nostrils. Sophia, in her quiet hospital room, could only clutch her chest, her new heart drumming an ominous rhythm under her fingertips. She felt like an intruder in a tragedy that wasn't hers. But how could she explain the woman's terror that she could feel in her very bones, the fear that left a bitter taste in her mouth? As she stared out the window at the towering oak tree, its leaves rustling in the wind, she could only wonder, was it the medication causing these horrific dreams? Or was it something else, something that came with her new heart, a remnant of its past life? The questions swirled in her mind, echoing in the empty corners of her room, unanswered. Life outside the hospital flowed in its usual rhythm, oblivious to Sophia's turmoil. The sun would rise and set, casting an ever-changing tableau of colors on the city skyline. The oak tree in the courtyard would sway with the wind, its leaves rustling like whispered secrets. But within the confines of Sophia's room, the world shrunk to the four sterile walls, the persistent beep of the heart monitor, and the growing dread that seized her every time she closed her eyes. With the same relentless persistence of a stormy sea battering against the shore, the nightmares returned each night. Every dream would unravel more about the woman. The alleyway, under the cold scrutiny of the lone lamppost, revealed its secrets, the jagged graffiti on the brick wall, the scurrying rats, the overflowing dumpster. But most haunting of all was the woman, Rebecca. Sophia had begun calling her, a name that had surfaced in her dream, seemingly out of nowhere. As the dreams escalated, so did Sophia's curiosity. Driven by an unnerving need to understand, she began to research. Her fingers danced over the screen of her tablet, an orchestra of soft clicks and swipes. She plugged in the fragments of information from her nightmares, like pieces of a terrifying puzzle, into the search engine. After countless hours of sifting through irrelevant results, she stumbled upon a news report. It was like a bucket of ice-cold water over her head. There, on her screen, was Rebecca, a recent murder victim, found in an alleyway. The details matched Sophia's nightmares with chilling precision. The brutal death, the narrow alleyway, even the graffiti on the wall. The picture of Rebecca, vibrant and alive, bore into her, sending a shiver snaking down Sophia's spine. Sophia. Nurse Amy's voice broke her from her reverie. Sophia quickly turned off the tablet, her face pale under the harsh hospital lights. "I'm okay, Amy," Sophia assured her, the lie bitter on her tongue. She forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Yet, alone in her room, Sophia's gaze kept returning to the silent tablet. The line between dream and reality had blurred. Her heart, once a symbol of renewed life, now seemed like an enigma, carrying the heavy echo of its previous owner's fate. The alleyway, Rebecca's terrified face, the glint of the silver knife, they were no longer confined to the realm of dreams. They were a chilling reality, a specter that lurked around Sophia's waking hours, infesting her thoughts, filling her with a dread that was as cold as the steel of the surgeon's scalpel. Her new heart, beating strong and steady under her trembling fingers, felt more like a ticking time bomb. As the shadows of the evening stretched across her room, Sophia found herself standing at the precipice of a terrifying mystery. Aided by her new heart, she had unwillingly become a silent witness to Rebecca's final moments. Now, she knew she had to dive deeper into this chilling narrative, for the sake of her sanity, and perhaps her life. Sophia's days became a patchwork of half-hearted convalescence and furtive investigation. Nurse Amy's cheery chatter during her daily visits became the white noise against which Sophia orchestrated her private sleuthing. In the hushed silence of her room, she immersed herself in her search for answers, her eyes poring over the grim details of Rebecca's murder. But as she delved deeper into the chilling narrative, a new horror unfolded. One afternoon, as she was walking in the hospital's secluded garden, she felt a presence behind her. The air around her seemed to tighten, and she could feel a cold dread creeping up her spine. She turned around to face the feeling and saw a figure retreating into the shadows. A man. Something about the way he moved sent a shiver of recognition through her. His figure, the way he faded into the shadows, reminded her of the hooded man in her nightmares. From that day forward, the man became an unwelcome companion in Sophia's life. He would appear in the periphery of her vision, a shadowy figure lurking in corners, blending with the crowd, and always watching her. His presence was like a cold breeze that brushed past her, leaving her skin prickled with goosebumps. The terror of her dreams had breached the boundary into her reality. The man who had haunted her nightmares now stalked her waking moments. Her world, once filled with vibrant colors and the joy of creation, had been replaced by shadows, a chilling fear, and a horrifying mystery. Despite the terror that gnawed at her, Sophia refused to retreat. She felt a burning determination kindling within her, a spark that was part Rebecca's resilience, part her own spirit. If this man had taken Rebecca's life and dared to haunt her dreams, she would not allow him to destroy her reality too. One evening, as Sophia returned to her room after her solitary walk in the garden, she found her courage waiting for her. It was there in the setting sun's soft light that bathed her room, the heart monitor's rhythmic beeping that was her new heartbeat, and the towering oak tree standing sentinel outside her window. "Sophia, you okay?" Nurse Amy's voice pierced her thoughts. She turned to look at Amy, her eyes, for the first time in weeks, shining with resolve. "I'm more than okay, Amy," she replied, a hint of her old spirit reflected in her voice. "I'm ready to fight." As the evening shadows crept into her room, Sophia realized that her journey was only beginning. She was no longer just a heart transplant recipient. She was a reluctant detective, a custodian of a tragic secret, and a woman haunted. But above all, she was a survivor, ready to confront the dark specter that threatened her life. Days folded into weeks, but for Sophia, time became a frenzied blur of hospital routines and clandestine research. Each passing day chiseled away at her initial apprehension, honing it into a weapon of determination. While her body physically healed, her spirit engaged in a silent war with the invisible adversary that had invaded her life. Her determination to unravel the mystery brought her to the digital doorstep of countless local newspapers, crime blogs, and even a few obscure conspiracy theory forums. She pored over Rebecca's life, piecing together a timeline, uncovering footprints of a woman she had never met yet felt an uncanny connection with. It was a surreal endeavor, like peering through a fogged glass window into a life that was not her own. One chilly afternoon, her meticulous search led her to a quaint farmer's market, where Rebecca used to sell her homemade candles. Sophia felt a strange sensation, a mix of trepidation and anticipation, as she strolled through the familiar stalls, guided by the vivid memories of her dreams. The riot of colors, the medley of fragrances from fresh produce, and the hum of chattering vendors, they all felt eerily familiar yet foreign. As she was paying for a small lavender candle at Rebecca's old stall, she felt it again. That cold sweep of air, the prickling sensation on her neck, the quiet dread that filled her. Slowly, she turned around, her heart pounding in her chest. And there he was, not a shadow this time, but a man. His face was hidden under a hood, just as it was in her nightmares. Their eyes met, and Sophia felt a jolt of fear so potent it made her gasp. Sophia did the only thing that her terror-stricken mind could think of. She ran. Her new heart thundered in her chest as she darted through the crowd, her fear lending her strength. She could hear him behind her, the quiet, relentless pursuit. But fear made her swift. She wound her way through the labyrinth of the market, putting distance between herself and the pursuer. She managed to lose him amongst the crowd and the confusion. Sophia found herself in a narrow alleyway, panting and trembling. The cold cobblestones beneath her were eerily similar to the one in her nightmares. The realness of her fears sent an icy shiver through her. Sophia was now certain the man in her dreams and the man at the market were the same. He was real, and he was after her. As the reality of her situation sank in, Sophia felt an odd sensation, not of despair, but of determination hardening within her. It was the realization that she was no longer just an observer in Rebecca's tragic tale. She was a part of it, entangled in its grim threads. The boundary between her life and Rebecca's had blurred, and it was up to Sophia to untangle it. Back in her hospital room, Sophia clutched the lavender candle from the market. Its sweet scent seemed to cut through the lingering fear, providing a strange sense of comfort. As darkness fell outside her window, Sophia prepared herself for the journey ahead. She was in the eye of a storm, a chilling mystery that threatened to consume her. But she wasn't going to be swept away. Sophia, the artist, the survivor, the reluctant heroine, was ready to confront her nightmares. The following weeks became a whirlwind of hospital visits, careful convalescence, and intense investigation. The deeper Sophia dug into Rebecca's life, the more entwined she felt with her, their lives tied by the pulsing rhythm of the heart within her chest. The hospital walls that had once seemed confining now provided a safe haven, a respite from the dark chase she found herself in. However, they also held a constant reminder of her situation, the steady beep of her heart monitor, a metallic echo of the fear she harbored. One particular morning, her search led her to an old news article, a story about a young, ambitious journalist named Rebecca Halliday. She was known for her hard-hitting reports and was investigating a high-profile pharmaceutical company at the time of her death. The more Sophia read, the more her heart pounded with recognition. This was the Rebecca from her nightmares, the woman whose tragic end echoed in her new heartbeat. Armed with this new information, Sophia set out to uncover the depth of the corruption Rebecca had been investigating. Her tablet became her companion, the digital pathways leading her deeper into a terrifying world of deceit, fraud, and silenced whistleblowers. Each article, each forum post, added another layer to the intricate web Rebecca had been close to exposing. Sophia's hospital room, once a serene sanctuary of white walls and clean linens, was now strewn with printouts, highlighted documents, and a sprawling map of connections she was slowly drawing between the players in Rebecca's investigation. The once reverberating silence was now filled with her soft murmurs. As she pieced together the puzzle, the heart monitor's steady beep a comforting soundtrack to her solitary mission. One evening, while going through an obscure blog, she came across an old interview with a retired police officer, Max Carver. He had been one of the officers initially involved in Rebecca's case. His sharp words and haunted gaze hinted at untold stories, secrets that had never made it to the official reports. Sophia felt a spark of hope. Perhaps he held the key to uncovering the rest of Rebecca's tale. From her hospital bed, Sophia reached out to Max Carver, typing out an email with shaky fingers. She explained her bizarre situation, her heart transplant, the recurring nightmares, her newfound connection to Rebecca, and the shadowy figure now haunting her life. She hit send, her heart pounding in her chest, the echo of her action reverberating in the quiet room. Night fell outside her window, the city skyline a distant shadow under the cloak of darkness. Inside, Sophia lay in her bed, a sole figure bathed in the glow of her tablet screen. The question marks surrounding Rebecca's life felt less daunting, less like a chilling mystery, and more like a code waiting to be cracked. She was no longer Sophia the artist or Sophia the patient. She was Sophia the investigator, the lone crusader in a battle she hadn't chosen but was now determined to win. As sleep finally claimed her, she clung to this new identity, bracing herself for the daunting journey into the heart of the mystery that was Rebecca Halliday's life. In the cool hush of the following morning, Sophia awoke to find a response from Max Carver. His brief but curious message agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. Armed with a mix of anticipation and apprehension, Sophia prepared for her first foray into the outside world since her transplant operation. The cafe, nestled between a bustling bookstore and an antiquated antiques shop, exuded an old-world charm. As Sophia stepped inside, she was greeted by the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweet scent of baked goods. Soft jazz tunes swirled around the room, caressing her ears with their calming notes. Seated in a secluded corner, she waited for Max. The cafe's ambient noise faded into a quiet hum as her mind played back her dreams. Rebecca's frightened face, the menacing figure, the glinting knife, they were no longer mere fragments of a dream. They were links to a larger, more sinister reality. Her contemplation was broken by a gruff voice. Sophia. Max Carver, tall and imposing, stood by her table. His once sharp features were softened by age, but his eyes held an intensity that reminded Sophia of an eagle, keen, watchful. She nodded, her throat suddenly dry, and motioned for him to sit. Over cups of strong coffee, Sophia shared her strange journey, her words flowing in an anxious stream. Max listened, his eyes holding a haunted look that sent chills down her spine. When she finished, he took a deep breath, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. He looked at her, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. It was the same fear she saw every night in her nightmares, mirrored in Rebecca's eyes. Max finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Rebecca was onto something big. Too big, perhaps. He paused, his gaze distant. She was investigating a powerful pharmaceutical company for illegal testing and undisclosed side effects. But she hit a dead end. He took a sip of his coffee, his gaze never leaving Sophia's face. The case was abruptly closed, pressure from up high, if you catch my drift. The murderer was never caught, and Rebecca became just another unsolved case. Sophia felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. The reality of her situation crashed down on her like a wave, chilling and unrelenting. Her new heart, Rebecca's heart, held more than just life. It held secrets, dark and terrifying. As she stepped out of the cafe, the city felt different, the colors less vibrant, the sounds hollow. She carried with her a heavy revelation. She was entangled in a dangerous web, and at its heart lay a truth that cost Rebecca her life. Sophia knew what she had to do. She would not let Rebecca's life be in vain. She would not let the man from the shadows get to her. She was stronger now, braver. The girl who had once feared the looming shadow of death was now ready to face the chilling winds of a grim conspiracy. She was ready to confront the nightmarish truth of Rebecca's end, and in doing so, reclaim her own life. After her meeting with Max, Sophia felt a sense of urgency prickling at her nerves. Time seemed to twist around her in a strange dance, at once rushed and agonizingly slow. The walls of her hospital room now felt restrictive, the monitor's rhythmic beeps an insistent reminder of the ticking clock. The shadow of the mysterious man loomed larger, his silent threat growing with every passing day. Her search into Rebecca's past transformed into a crusade. She spent countless hours diving into the labyrinth of conspiracy theories, hidden forums, and obscure news articles. She pieced together the clues, her mind echoing with Rebecca's silenced voice. As she dove deeper, the chilling image of the pharmaceutical company took shape. It was a monstrous entity, its tentacles of corruption weaving a dark tapestry. Yet, the more she discovered, the closer danger seemed to creep. The man's shadowy presence grew more frequent, more aggressive. She saw him in the quiet corners of the hospital hallways, his ominous silhouette lurking in the background. The hospital, which had once felt like a safe haven, now seemed to hold an unseen threat, a constant game of hide and seek with her unnamed adversary. One evening, as Sophia was returning from one of her solitary walks in the garden, she sensed him. He was closer this time, his presence a tangible threat in the crisp air. A whiff of the cold cologne hit her, a smell she recognized from her nightmares. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rounded a corner, she found herself face to face with him. His hood was drawn back slightly, revealing cold, calculating eyes. Fear gripped her, cold and paralyzing. But she broke from it, turning on her heels and sprinting towards the hospital building. She dared not look back, her pulse deafening in her ears. She made it back to her room, slamming the door behind her. She leaned against the cool wood, catching her breath. Her heart hammered in her chest, echoing the terror coursing through her veins. The man from her nightmares had now fully stepped into her reality. Despite the fear that gripped her, Sophia felt a fierce determination kindle within her. She was the only link to Rebecca's silenced voice, the sole bearer of a truth that had been swept under the rug. She had come too far to let the lurking shadows deter her. As the night descended, Sophia sat in her room, her resolve hardening. Each beep of the heart monitor echoed her heartbeat, a fierce rhythm of resilience. The danger was escalating, but so was her determination. She knew she held the key to a dangerous truth, a truth that had cost Rebecca her life. She would see it through for Rebecca, for herself. The battle lines were drawn, and Sophia, with a heart brave and resolute, was ready to fight. The following days were a twisted ballet of fear and determination. Sophia divided her time between continuing her research into Rebecca's life and avoiding the shadowy figure haunting her every move. The hospital corridors became a twisted labyrinth, a chessboard where Sophia was both a pawn and a queen. Her sleuthing led her to more uncomfortable truths. Rebecca had been dangerously close to blowing the lid off the pharmaceutical company's fatal secrets, her relentless pursuit of truth marking her as a threat. The high-profile executives had every reason to silence her, to bury their secrets with her. With every click and swipe on her tablet, Sophia felt Rebecca's presence, a silent partner in their shared mission. The stories she uncovered were a chilling mirror of her nightmares. Each detail, each revelation, resonated with the gruesome images that haunted her dreams. But Sophia was not alone in her quest. Max proved to be a valuable ally, his old contacts and experience offering a guiding light in the murkiness of her investigation. His gruff voice became a familiar comfort, a reminder that she wasn't alone in her daunting battle. One evening, while she was going through an old article on her tablet, Sophia heard a soft knock on her door. The nurses were done with their rounds, and Sophia felt a chill creeping up her spine. She glanced at the door and saw a shadow beneath it, a silent threat. With her heart pounding in her chest, she slowly approached the door. The knocks became louder, more insistent. She took a deep breath, her fingers curling around the cold door handle. As she yanked it open, she found herself staring into the cold, calculating eyes of the hooded man. The hallway's clinical lights cast long, grotesque shadows on his face, transforming him into a nightmarish figure. His lips curled into a smirk, a cruel imitation of a smile. "Sophia," he drawled, his voice colder than she imagined. Her name on his lips felt like a violation, a chilling whisper that made her skin crawl. But Sophia was not the same woman who had cowered in fear weeks ago. She was a warrior, armed with the truth and the echo of Rebecca's courage. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady. He took a step closer, his cold gaze boring into her. "You know what I want, Sophia. Drop your investigation." Her heart throbbed in her chest, a fierce drumbeat of defiance. "I won't," she declared, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. As she slammed the door in his face, a strange calm washed over her. The fear was still there, lurking in the corners, but it was overshadowed by her defiance. She was no longer just a victim. She was a beacon of justice for Rebecca. She was the heart in the storm, unyielding, brave, and determined. As she returned to her tablet, Sophia felt a renewed energy surge within her. Her meeting with the shadowy figure confirmed one thing: she was on the right path. And no matter how terrifying the shadows became, she wouldn't back down. The truth was within her grasp, and she would see it revealed, come what may. In the days following her chilling encounter, Sophia felt the noose of danger tighten around her. The shadowy figure was relentless, his silent threats a chilling soundtrack to her every move. Yet, Sophia refused to back down, the echo of her defiant words a constant reminder of her mission. She spent her days knee-deep in her investigation, her nights haunted by the man's chilling presence. The hospital, once a symbol of her rebirth, had now transformed into a battleground, her room a sanctuary where she plotted her moves. She was not alone in her fight. Max had stepped up, his aged wisdom and relentless spirit proving to be invaluable. Nurse Amy, too, became an unexpected ally, her cheerful disposition a comforting balm to Sophia's rising anxiety. With Max's help, Sophia finally hit the breakthrough she'd been seeking. They discovered a hidden trail of digital breadcrumbs that Rebecca had left behind, a set of encrypted files containing damning evidence against the pharmaceutical company. The company had known about the fatal side effects of their drugs and had chosen to silence the truth rather than lose their profits. Armed with the evidence, Sophia felt a strange mix of relief and fear. She held the key to Rebecca's silence, the truth that had cost the woman her life. But this truth marked her, too, and the shadowy figure was closing in. With her heart pounding in her chest, Sophia made the call that would change everything. She dialed the number of a trusted reporter, an old acquaintance of Max, and sent him the files. As she ended the call, a heavy sigh escaped her lips. The truth was out there now, beyond the shadow's reach. That night, as Sophia lay in her hospital bed, she felt a strange calm. The heart monitor's rhythmic beeping echoed in the quiet room, a lullaby of sorts. She clutched her chest, her fingers gently pressing against the skin. Her heart, the heart that once belonged to Rebecca, beat strong and steady. It was a heartbeat of justice, of bravery, of truth. The following morning, Sophia woke up to a different world. The news of the pharmaceutical company's corruption was everywhere, the grim truth unfolding in blaring headlines. Rebecca's death was no longer an unsolved mystery, but the tragic cost of a silenced truth. As Sophia watched the news, a faint smile tugged at her lips. Rebecca's justice was served, her death avenged. Sophia had stepped into Rebecca's shoes, walked in her heartbeats, and carried her truth to the light. She was no longer just Sophia, the heart transplant recipient. She was Sophia, the custodian of Rebecca's truth, the woman who stared into the eyes of her fear and emerged victorious. Her journey was far from over, but Sophia knew one thing for sure. She would face whatever came next with a brave heart, ready to fight, ready to live. Well, listeners, we have reached the end of this unsettling journey. Did you feel the fear crawling up your spine, the chill prickling at the back of your neck? Or did you hear your own heartbeat matching the rhythm of the story? The tale of the haunted heartbeat reminds us that reality can often be more horrifying than our worst nightmares. But fear not, we'll be back next time with another tale that will rattle your senses, that will make the night seem a little darker, the silence a little deeper. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.